let's talk about reverb for vocals. Because when you get it right, it brings so much depth. It brings so much energy to the vocal. And this is especially true on a live stream mix because you don't have that natural reverb of the room to work with. So what have you found to be the best reverb strategy for vocals in a live stream mix?
First of all, let me say I love reverb so much.
Same. I'm with you, man.
That's got to be my favorite thing. Like, yes. Oh man, it's just... but it's also the most like abused and sound terrible effect that's out there too, because it's so easy to make it sound bad. But yeah, please don't put dry vocals on a live stream. Whatever you do, please don't put dry vocals on a live stream. That may sound silly for people who have done this for a while, but a lot of like smaller churches with just volunteers who don't know, like there's dry vocals and they have no idea that there's even a reverb thing on their board. And the reason you don't want to put dry vocals on a live stream is because you don't hear dry voices ever in life. You're surrounded by reverb. Everything you hear is reverb. And we are wildly sensitive to how voices sound. Like our brains are built to hear voices and if they sound natural or stressed out. Like literally your brain knows emotions and they're analyzing, and you know the mother knows if her baby's cry is distressed or happy, or like we're just built to understand how voices are supposed to sound, and they always have reverb. So if you don't have reverb on a live stream mix, your brain is going to immediately say something is wrong. Like that's just like you hear a dry voice and you're like something doesn't sound right, and that first of all is distracting, and second of all it just sounds bad. Quick side note. Have you ever seen like the people go into the like completely soundproof rooms before? Have you? Yeah, so there's these, it's in some colleges or so. There's a couple of them. They're completely soundproof. So the noise floor is like literally 0 dB, which doesn't exist in nature. And there's no reverberations. Like they're built specifically for this. And watch these people go in and taking videos, and like they'll go in, they'll close the door, and some people will get dizzy. Some people will have panic attacks. Some people will get nauseous. Like that's how unnatural not having reverb around you is it can literally make people ill. So by the way, yeah, go watch those videos. They're fun. I want to try one of those rooms so bad. That would be crazy.
Just look those up on YouTube.
Yeah. Just look them up on YouTube. Yeah. Say like completely soundproof room and you'll see videos of people going in. So on that note, why you add reverb to the live stream mix is not to make it sound like there's reverb. You're making it sound like there's not reverb. You're making it sound completely natural. So my tip would be you don't want it to sound like there's reverb on the vocal, which does not mean don't put much on. It just means put the right kind on. So you're trying to, it's strange, but you're trying to get people to believe that there's nothing wrong with the vocal is what reverb is for. So it very much will depend on the venue and the song and the style and all that. One easy way to kind of do this is to just add the reverb, turn it up till you can hear it, and then turn it down a bit till you can't. And in general, that'll get you in the right area if the reverb's in the right sound. And that way, and then after you do that, you might think, oh, well, I just took out the reverb. If you have a way to like A/B it, like turn it off, turn it back on, turn it off, turn it back on, and you'll hear a massive, massive difference. And you'll be able to hear the reverb again. Also, your brain gets used to it quickly. So if you think there's like you turn it down and you can't tell anymore, like just take a break for like 30 seconds, listen to it again. Your brain will forget where the reverb is and what it sounded like, and you'll either hear it or you won't. And if you can't, then that's great. And if you hear the reverb after that break, then it might be just unnatural or sounding wrong. So that's a simple way is turn it up till you can hear it, then turn it down, take a quick break, come back, see if you can hear it. That's just kind of because we got to trick our brains with reverb because it's so natural.
Yeah, and I swear, I did not pay Nathan to say that because that's exactly what I say when it comes to reverb. Just turn it up till you can hear it, and then dial it back down until it blends in.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
This video is brought to you by X32 Mastery, the fastest way to master both the X32 and the M32. Get access today for you and your team at x32.church.
When it comes to the type of reverb, though, do you have a favorite, like a plate or a hall, or like what are you using?
I'm not sure there's a right answer. Like, so there's two kinds of reverbs these days. There's algorithmic and there's convolution. Convolution uses IRs. So in English, a convolution is imitating a real space. Like you would select something that said like Notre Dame Cathedral, and they would take an IR from Notre Dame Cathedral if it's a really expensive reverb, and then it would sound like that. Whereas algorithmic is literally just using math to pretend that it's real. So in general, algorithmic will probably be what you use if you're using like straight out of a board, or if you're using a stock reverb plugin, although there's convolution on those too. And typically those are the quickest, so good for live, and easiest to use because there's less settings and less confusing settings. So I tend to use, in live streams, I would use an algorithmic, but then I would kind of try to use like a hall or a room. I'm not a huge fan of plates on vocals. I feel like they sound unnatural, but some people love it, and that's personal preference. I tend to, usually I will start with a hall with like a, 1 to 2 second delay or decay on it, and see if that sounds right, and then adjust from there is typically where I'd go. But
I like to mix them. I like plate on vocals, so I'm one of those. Yeah,
you're one of those guys.
I'm one of those guys. I like plate at like a maybe 1 to 2 second decay time, because to me it like gives the vocal this little sparkle. You also want a pre-delay on that because you don't want all the sibilants from the S's and the T's coming through that plate too much. But my primary, the one that you'll hear more, is I like the hall reverb, and I go long, like a 3 to 4 second decay time. I just love that trail at the end. So
yeah,
that plate gives a little sparkle at the beginning, and then the hall gives it the trail at the end. That's my preference.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who do the one short and one long, and that can sound amazing for sure. Yeah, my way was kind of the quick and easy, and hey, I don't know about reverb, and I just have this one in my board. Like, start with a hall, go to 2 seconds. I think that's kind of the most least offensive, probably. And then if you're as wild and knowledgeable as Cade, you can add a second longer one on there and switch it to plate and go crazy.
Well, I really just don't think there's a right or wrong way to do reverb. It's totally a stylistic thing.
For sure. On one of my songs that I mixed, like it was a darker song, and I think my reverb on that song is like 9 seconds. It's absurd.
Wow.
Like, yeah, because it was a very like ethereal, eerie song, and then you have a quicker song where you don't want, and then it's like you got like a half second plate with a huge pre-delay. Like, so yeah, you're right. Reverb is musical. Like, of all your plugins, it might be the most musical, if that makes sense. Which means you need to use it like an instrument almost instead of just effect.
Yeah, and when you're mixing in the room, you have to take in consideration the natural reverb of the room, because you want to complement what's going on in there already and not fight against it. And I'll just come clean. I'm a protege of Andrew Stone. I don't know if you know that guy, but he passed away a couple years ago. But he's kind of like a ringleader in the sound world. He ran sound at Church on the Move, but even before that, he ran sound at a lot of big name concerts and stuff like that. I live in the Tulsa area, so I actually got to go sit at Church on the Move and listen to how he mixed. And that guy was like all over reverb. A lot of people made fun of him for using too much reverb, but yet he's like one of the most renowned mixers out there. So it's totally stylistic. Even the guys that are mixing out there for huge concerts, some are using a little reverb, some are using a lot of reverb. It just all depends. Like, have fun with it. It's kind of like getting to be an artist, right? And painting it however you want it to look. So that's awesome. I love reverb. I'm with you, man.
Yeah, for real.
Fun stuff. I could talk about this for days, but we better go ahead and move on, unless you got something else to say.
When recording, that's the thing that I spent. I'm like, okay, Nathan, you've been messing with reverbs for 3 hours. You haven't wrote the song yet. Like, get out of there.
You know, what's fun with the live stream mix is you can also have your ambient mics in the room, which is kind of like adding your natural reverb of the room. So you can pick that up in the live stream and people can feel like they're actually there. So
I did remember one reverb tip that I was going to mention.
Go for it.
This one, I don't know if a lot of people use this or not, but one thing you can do that I think can be super helpful in clearing up your mix is to EQ after your reverb. So I do this all the time when recording. Not as much live streaming because the routing is a little more complicated. But if you have your reverb on a separate, like a bus, and you're sending your vocals to that and then back, what you can do is add the reverb, and then some reverbs have EQ on them, but if it doesn't, add an EQ after your reverb, and then EQ that reverb out of certain frequencies, and then send it back. So a lot of times, a lot of mud can come from the reverbs that is happening in like the 1 to 300 range. And a good way to picture this in your brain is like, picture an empty warehouse, picture you're playing a bass drum, and you hit that bass drum in the empty warehouse, and that reverb will start to sound muddy. It'll build up. It'll get ugly. Now switch that out. You're in the same warehouse. Picture you're playing a violin. That reverb is going to be beautiful, and it's going to sound crisp, and it's going to sound great. The bass frequencies don't bounce around as prettily, if that's a word, as the high frequencies. And if you have a bunch of low-end reverb, it's just going to be like complete mud in your mix. So if you have a lot of reverb on a lot of instruments with low ends, maybe like a guy with a voice like mine, or you have it on a guitar that's playing low, or an acoustic guitar or a piano, those all have low frequencies. It can be really helpful to put an EQ after that reverb on that bus. Literally cut everything below 300, as long as your EQ's on the bus. Don't be cutting your frequencies, but if it's on a bus, cut everything below 300 or whatever, and listen back with that. And I promise it'll clear up a bunch of mud in your mix if you got that problem.
Yeah, man, that's a great tip. And for those of you using the X32, you would just put that EQ filter on the FX returns, and you got it taken care of.